place to accept Christ. We use words that non-Christians don't understand. We sit and stand and sing songs, things people just don't get. You know, we're singing verse 1, 2, and 4, and the first-time attender is trying to figure out why we skip verse 3 every song. Yeah, it's just, we got so many things we do that first-time guests are clueless of, all right? And so one of the things that I hope that you'll do, and this is really not necessarily that you have to do. Part of what we teach at 24 to Double is a little bit of opinion. You can throw that away. You can throw out the opinion. But we hope that you'll think critically about the way you design your weekend worship experience. And make sure that what you're doing is palatable for lost people. Really, most churches, we get so into our kinds of songs and our kinds of sermons and our kind of stuff until it's really not an easy environment for a lost person to catch on board. And what we've learned is that in the pastor's meal, a lot of people have gotten saved. It really has. Now, I want to say this. I'm going to talk to you about the pastor's meal. Daystar currently is doing something a little bit different, and at the very end, I'm going to tell you briefly about that. If the church is mature enough and large enough, you can do this different kind of thing. It's called a growth track. And that's kind of what we're doing, but I'm teaching from the term of where we were. Most of the churches here are not at the size of Daystar, and so I don't want to teach you about where we are. I want to teach you about how we got to where we are, which I think is a lot better. I don't want to hear somebody with a church, you know, if I'm going to learn from a church of 20,000, I want to hear what they were doing when they were a church of 2,000, not what they're doing at 20,000, okay? So that's what I'm teaching this from. And when we were at a smaller size, I guess we implemented this at about 700, and we started really doing the pastor's meal almost every weekend. And I really mean that. Almost every weekend, someone got saved at the pastor's meal. Almost every weekend. Because it was an easy way to do so. You know, in a large room, even just this many people that are here, you know, whatever this is, 100 or 200 people, just a small number like this, it's very difficult for someone to just stand up and say, I'm not saved, you know. And come up to the front, and you got people who are saved and are living right, and they're all perfect, or you think they think they're perfect, or whatever it is that you think. It's just very difficult for that. And the pastor's meal is a smaller and more intimate setting, and we almost always had someone to be saved. All right? So that's why it's important to give them that opportunity. Moving on in your notes. Thirdly, they're going to hear the pastor's vision for the church and community. Real briefly, the pastor's going to come in and just say, here's who we are. Now, at Daystar Church, we make the vision statement real simple. It's real love now. And so when I would come up and talk about Daystar, I would really only be at the pastor's meal for a few minutes. It'd be run by other leaders in our church. I'd just be there for a few minutes, and I'll come in and say, you know, Daystar Church is trying to be simple enough for everyone to easily understand. Let me tell you 3 steps about Daystar. Real love now. Now, real means, and I would just step right through that in literally no more than 5 minutes, and then step off the stage. And the rest of that was run by someone else, and we'll go over more of that. Number 4, we want to inform the FTA that God has a plan for their life and a desire to use them to serve in the kingdom. Right there, folks, from the very beginning, we start out by telling the person, there's a place for you to serve in the church. I want to show you in just a moment how easily it is for you to have a person, you think you've got them, and they're gone. I mean, you think they love the church. When you met them, maybe you met them at the back door before they left, they were telling you how wonderful your church is. They really loved it, and you thought you had them, but they're gone. Now, how many of you can think of somebody like that? You thought you had them, but they're gone. Or you know, how many of you have ever said this statement? Well, if we just had half the people who've been through this church, we'd never be able to see them all in our sanctuary. Oh, we've all said that, right? And so one of the missing elements is getting them involved in ministry. So from the very beginning, we're going to let them know that God has a plan for their life, and we're here to help you find out how to use that plan to help others. And you can do that through our church. So now, the reason we start out right there is because the growth of 24 to Double is built on the laws of growth, or what's sometimes called the 7 laws of 7. This is written by Dr. Weston, and I'm going to break those down for you real quickly. Law number 1 is the 7 impressions. And that's really where we based how you build your vision statement of your church, how you decide, you know, what is the target area that you're going after with your church, and that's sort of the pastor's impression of himself, what's the impression he has of the church and what we have to work with? What's our impression of the community? What's the community's impression of us? We talked a lot about that in month 1. I won't rehash that. Then law number 2 is the 7 touches of love. Now we're going to really hit this next month. We're going to talk a lot about that. That is when people first walk through the door, we want to hit them with 7 touches of love. Law number 3 is the 7 contacts. And that's in our big event component. That'll be coming up later. Law number 4 is the 7 friends. That basically says that if a person in 7 weeks doesn't meet 7 friends who know their name and they know that friend's name, they're going to be out of the door. That's kind of the whole, I thought they were here, but where did they go? Where's that nice little couple 3 weeks in a row? They sat on the 3rd row. Where did they go? I mean, how many times has that been replayed over and over in our church? Because we don't have that connection with them. 24 to double is there to help you fill that void. Number 6 rather, is 7 months of follow-up and tracking. And then number 7 is 7 leadership positions that are outlined in Romans chapter 12. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Next slide is the...
Skipping forward to minute 20 now. He does looking thing, doesn't he? Got a hernia.
They are zealous. I mean, because they're convinced they've heard from God, and they have. I mean, those are very spiritual, intensely spiritual people. They pray more than the rest of the team, and they know they've heard from God, and so they are very zealous, and they're bold enough to speak it too. That's one of the characteristics of a prophetically gifted person. And so, because of that zeal and because of that boldness, we make them team leaders, and that is a big mistake. Prophetic leader, man, he's hearing from God. He's got the whole team hearing from God. Everybody's excited for God, except they forgot what they're supposed to be doing today. That's just the problem.
That was 20. That we were a little bit into 20.
Okay, all right.
So this is 21.
So you use the pastor, call it the pastor's meal. You want to encourage people to come and meet the pastor. The absolute best time to have the pastor's meal is the week after the FTA's first visit. This is, guys, this is as true as the gospel now. You can't overlook this. The chance of them becoming assimilated, assimilation means they're fully integrated into your church. They're a member of the church, they're serving, they call it my church. The chance of them becoming assimilated in your church is not just greater, exponentially greater if they come right back the next week. Here's something you've heard me say before, probably already if you've been coming from the beginning. The first time someone shows up at your church, by and large, the average church has about a 10% chance of keeping them, assimilating them. 10% chance. And that's kind of fudging. It's more usually around 8%. About a 10% chance of keeping them. If they'll come back the very next week, the person who visits your church 2 weeks in a row, the chances of them becoming a part of your church goes up to 50%. 50%. The chances when a person comes 3 weeks in a row, the likelihood of them becoming a part of your church goes from 10, not to 50, but to 80%. 80%. That's why I say getting them to come back the very next week increases your chances of keeping them exponentially. Not addition-wise. Not like you got a 10% chance they come back the next week, you got a 20% chance. Say it with me. It goes from 10 to 50 to 80. All right, let me see if you're paying attention. If I come the first Sunday of the month, what's my likelihood of coming back and being a part of your church? 10%. If I then come back a second time on the third Sunday of the month, what's my likelihood of becoming a part of your church?
10%.
No. 10%. I got to go 2 weeks in a what?
In a row.
In a row. I can't just come on the first Sunday and come back on the third Sunday. I got to go 2 weeks in a row. So if I come back on the first Sunday and I come on the second Sunday of the month, then my likelihood of joining your church is what? 50%. Now, why is that so important? Because what we're going to want to do when we start talking change, when we start talking the pastor's meal, we're going to want to do the pastor's meal once a month. I'm reading your mind. Some of you already decided we'll do it once a month. That's easier, right? No. Because you do it once a month. Here's the problem with that. If I visit your church, say you do the pastor's meal the first Sunday of the month, and I visit your church the first Sunday of the month. I didn't know about the pastor's meal, so I didn't come, right? I just came to the worship service. And I met you, and then you told me about this awesome way to meet the pastor and get involved in the church. It's the pastor's meal. How long do I have to wait now? I got to wait 4 weeks. I want them back the very next week. So that's why I'm saying, now you may ramp up into this, guys. You know, and I'm not saying, please don't go home and just throw, you know, where we're going to have this class. We don't have any room for it. You know, the senior adult ladies meet, we're going to throw them out of the room, and next week we got, you know, coffee and donuts in there. I'm not saying to go home and just start turning the whole thing upside down. You have to work your way into it. You may not have the best location yet. You may not do it in the best time yet. You may find it at lunchtime once a month is all you can do for now, or, you know, breakfast once a month is all you can do for now. But don't say you've got the pastor's meal done until it's breakfast every Sunday. That way, no matter when they come. So here's what I do. Now, I'm going to tell you right now. You visit Daystar, and I meet you at Guest Central. And so I ask questions like, hey, are you from around here? Yeah. Live right, da, da, da. So it's great. So are you guys looking for a church? Yeah, we're actually looking for a church. This is the first church we visited, and we think it's important to visit lots of different churches. I'm going to say, yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. But now I need you to be back here next Sunday, because we got a special breakfast next Sunday that we want you to come. I don't tell them we have it every week. No, we need you back here next Sunday. Now, on the outside, I'm over here like, yeah, visit all the churches. Just go over and see Brother Fred. Visit all the churches in town. But deep down, I know you ain't going nowhere else but right here. I'm going to get you back here for breakfast next week, and I'm going to find another excuse to have you back here next. I'm up to 80% before they ever met Brother Fred. I'm telling you. Now, you may think that's the wrong attitude, or that's the wrong idea, but here's what I know that I know that I know. That our church, I know the Spirit moves at our church. I know people can be saved at our church. I know addictions can be broken at our church. I know families can be raised in a godly and righteous atmosphere. And I don't know if that person leaves, if they're ever going to go meet Brother Fred where the same thing can happen. I just know I got an opportunity right now, and I'm going to go after them with everything I have right now. The Bible says you got to work while it's day, because the night is coming when no man can work. So we're working hard. And I'm expecting that on the other side of town, Brother Fred's working just as hard to get them before they get a chance to visit Daystar. Because the chances of them actually going somewhere else may be very slim, right? I mean, people go to church because they're impulse people. You know, hard times came this week, and on impulse, I came to church. Things worked out a little bit better next week, and I don't come to church for another 3 years. So we got to hit them hard while they're there, okay? That's the purpose of this kind of training. So look at that graphic. You can do it at breakfast. You can do it at lunch. You can do it at dinner. Different possible ways to kind of work your way into it. But remember this, when you're planning a pastor's meal, a weekly breakfast is best by far. That's the goal. That's what we want to get to. Now, moving on. How do I invite FTAs? What's an FTA? First time attender. We do it multiple ways by multiple people. You announce it in a worship service. Let me start out by saying that when you start doing pastor's meal, pastor's breakfast for the first time, and you make it a priority, like for me, when we first started it, I would miss the beginning of our 9 o'clock service. We had a 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock service at that time. And so we would have the 9 o'clock pastor's breakfast, and I would miss the beginning of the 9 o'clock service. So it's very obvious, very conspicuous to people that pastor's somewhere else. And then people are going to find out that not only is the pastor somewhere else at the beginning, he's over there feeding people for free. They're watching videos. They're meeting the pastor. I've been going to church here 3 years. I've never sat down and had a donut with the pastor. And you know, our whole mindset of me, right? Our whole stuff is just kind of flowing. It's going to flow back when we start doing something for someone else. All right. So one of the things that we did, and we encourage you to do this for a number of reasons, is we announced the pastor's breakfast to everybody in the church and invited the whole church. We said, please don't everybody come this week, but let's plan it out. And you can do it any number of ways. You can say, people with your name begins between letters A and D, come this week, and next week from E to G or whatever, so that everybody's going to come at the same time. But you're okay with people coming who have been a part of the church for a long time. Now, why is that? Think about why you're okay with that. Not just to keep them happy. Not just to give them a free meal. Because you want to connect them to a ministry. Because you got a lot of people who are bench warming, right? And so the goal of pastor's meal is not just to meet the pastor. That's just the hook of pastor's meal. The real goal of pastor's meal is once you meet the pastor, once you get that free meal, at the end we're going to tell you that God's got a plan for your life and that you got to get up and start doing something about that plan. And here's how you do it. You serve at the church. And that's awesome because once you begin to serve at the church, every time somebody comes through the pastor's meal and begins to serve at the church is going to grow by how many people? 4. Because every one person that's involved, 4 people, there's an excitement generated by that person being involved, and 4 people will come. So the whole thing is built around a discipleship model, which, when we do the discipleship model, does grow the church. 24 to Double is not a church growth program. It is a discipleship model. And a byproduct of discipleship is church growth. Everybody get that? All right, thank you. All right, so we invite in a lot of different ways. We announce in the worship service. Secondly, we send out an invitation. We send a ticket in the mail. You know, when someone gets a ticket, it really feels like they got something, right? So in the guest lounge or whatever you want to call your room, hospitality room, we call it Guest Central. When you meet them, you hand them a ticket. Hey, guys, here's your ticket. This ticket covers your whole family. I want you to bring your whole family to the pastor's meal. Then we mail them one in the mail as well because they're going to lose that ticket. It's going to be on their dashboard or whatever's going to happen. We don't want anything to preclude them. Then the third thing that we did, and you may not want to do this, but this was very effective, is we had the pastor's wife, my wife, would call every first-time guest on Friday or Saturday and remind them about the pastor's meal. Hey, we hope you can come. My husband and I are going to be there. We'd love to meet your family. Oh, hey, I lost that ticket. Hey, don't worry about it. You don't even need that ticket. We'll be looking for you. That phone call did a lot of good things. And it kind of made them excited, especially if you come to, even back then, the church was already a pretty large church, around 1,000 people. The thought that the pastor's wife would call me, that was kind of exciting. And so we encourage you to do that. We don't say your pastor's wife has to do that because every time I teach this, there's one pastor's wife who looks at me like, I'm doing 87 different things and you want me to do one more thing? I mean, really, I'll say this. The reason you need a process like 24 to Double is because your few people who are serving are working themselves to death. But making 24 to Double work and getting this new process in place initially is a little bit more work for you. It is. To fix the problem that you have. That makes sense? So there is a little bit of a problem there you have to work your way through. Now also the follow-up team invites them when they meet them at Guest Central, and when they call them later on that week, we remind them over and over again, we want you in this pastor's meal. Why is the pastor's breakfast so important? Think about it. It solves so many of our problems. The reason why 90% of the people who visit your church don't come back is because we leave them in that nebulous, I'm sort of visiting around mode. Pastor's breakfast solves that. We get them right back the next week. Another reason why people don't go, you remember the 7 laws of 7 I hurriedly went through? Another reason why we lose people is because they don't know anyone. If in the first 7 weeks you don't meet 7 people, you're not going to stay at a church. Well, we're going to meet 7 people. We're going to try to meet 7 people the first day and come back next month. We'll show you how to do that. But essentially the second week that they're there, they're definitely going to meet 7 people at the pastor's breakfast. Another reason why a person does not stay at a church is because it's your church or y'all's church or the church and not my church. And the way it becomes my church is I serve somewhere in the church, right? And again, pastor's breakfast fixes that problem because, and we're not there yet, but at the end of pastor's breakfast, we put them in a ministry. I mean, I hope you're understanding this thing. This is an awesome thing. It will help your church in a lot of different ways. It'll fix a lot of the problems that are going on. So let's just break down the agenda then. What does the pastor's breakfast look like? Now, there may be a little bit of room for you to massage this and make some changes about it. There is a 1-week option and there's a 2-week option. You could make pastor's breakfast a 2-week option. In its original formula, it was designed to go 2 weeks. Because if you get them to come, let's just do it again. 1 week, what's the likelihood of them staying? 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row. So this thing can be done in the 3-week format. In all honesty, I don't think we ever did, in a 2-week format. I don't think we ever did 2 weeks, did we? We did do 2 weeks. We did 2 weeks for a while, and then we went to just a 1-week program. We've tried everything. All right, so here's the agenda. Look in your notes are on the screen. First of all, music is playing as FTAs enter. The leaders and pastors are fellowshipping and just kind of meeting with the people. Secondly, the pastor shares his vision of the church. I talked about that. Then a video presentation that just kind of tells you a little bit about the church can be made real simple. If you don't have video stuff going on in your church, find some junior high kid. He'll make you a video. They're doing that stuff real easy. Next, we give them an opportunity to meet Christ. We explain why I'm a Christian. We use the James Kennedy approach. There's a lot of different ways to share the gospel, but a real succinct way of explaining the gospel. Next, we give an invitation. Give people an opportunity to be saved right in their seat. We pray over them right there. Then we give the spiritual gift and passion profile. You guys have already seen that. It's on the website. Then we discuss the gifts that God has given each person. We give a quick breakdown that the gifts are a roadmap to your destiny. It's important for you to understand God's gift in you. That's all part of the training. And then we serve breakfast. Now, after breakfast, we're processing the spiritual gifts and passion profile, the little questionnaires that they've answered. While that breakfast is going on, a secretary is processing that. And then we explain those briefly, the 7 functional gifts that I just read to you. And then we tell how the FTA can be involved while they're eating. If you've got a video to tell the history of your church, you could run that while people are eating. It's not necessary. But then at the end, we want to give them back their spiritual gift results. Let them see that. Listen, they're going to love that because it tells all about me, and they're going to want to see that stuff. And then we invite them to spiritual gift discovery. These are some classes that you can offer that explain the spiritual gifts. Now, essentially, here's what's going to happen. They're going to get a piece of paper back from you that says, you are gifted in the area of encouragement, or you're gifted in the area of giving, or you're gifted in the area of administration. What does that mean for me? You're not going to be able to explain all that in one 1 hour or hour and a half breakfast teaching setting. So you're going to want to push them to some training that is available to them, and you'll have to find out when that training best fits in your schedule. We did it on Sunday nights, but you can find out when that's going to be best for you. Going back to the list again, the last 2 things, invite them to the spiritual gift discovery and then a basic Q&A. All right, I'm going to pause right there. We're actually almost done with that training, and just kind of recap what we've learned. And I want you to formulate in your mind questions. The pastor's meal is a huge process, and I believe that we have designed 24 to Double to put what Lance calls the low-hanging fruit up front. Think about it like this. When you change anything, people will have a problem with it. People will argue about it. People will have questions about it. So what we want to do is not only are we doing the right thing, the biblical thing, we're also doing the thing that's going to grow the church, but we're also want to do it in a way that helps you public relations wise. You begin to change things, there's a PR battle to be done at all times. The best answer to the PR questions, should we be doing this? This is the right thing to do. Pastor's changing everything. The best answer is results, right? Well, I don't know. Old brother Bob over here, he hates everything that we're doing. Well, did Bob notice that we've got, 50 more people than we used to have? Even old brother Bob's got to understand that with 50 more people in the house. So this is designed to help you get people quickly. And so we put really the three best components of this right up front. The pastor's meal, the front door team, and the follow-up team. Those are going to be the first things we teach you. And I want you to get your most passionate, your most committed, and most nimble leaders to help get those things up and going. All right? People, when I say nimble, I mean people that are willing to make it happen, even if it's not their passion. Even if it's not something that God woke them up in the night and said, this is what I want you to do. But you love your church, you love God, and you want to do whatever's got to be done. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is find a way to make the pastor's meal work. And I love this story. I love the story of Daystar because it's really, really hard for anybody to tell me the yeah buts. So anytime you start talking about things that need to change, things that we need to do that are hard, the next thing to flow is the yeah buts. Well, you need to have this every month. Yeah, but. You need to have pastor's meal every week. Yeah, but. You need to set aside a special room just for the pastor's meal. Yeah, but. And there's always yeah, buts, right? Yeah, but we don't have any money to feed people a meal. But we don't have anybody who's willing to do the meal. But we don't have a room that's available to do that. And the Daystar story is really cool in that Daystar's never been a wealthy church. We've never had a lot of money. We've always reached out to lost people, and lost people have more addictions than they have tithes. I've been here for 10 years. I know from whence I speak, okay? When a lost person gets saved, they need more than the saved person beside them. They need counseling. They need help. A lot of times they need rent. You know what I mean? They need a lot. They got nothing to give. So I understand operating on a tight budget. When we did pastor's meal, we were running, in our old location, we were running 1,000 in attendance, had 67 total parking spots, and 1 acre of property. We had the pastor's breakfast in a truck stop across the street. Okay, so the whole thing about, yeah, but we don't have a room for it, we didn't have room for anything, okay? What we're going to have to determine, and these are the decisions you have to make as leaders of your church. We have to determine what produces our goals. What is actually producing a harvest for us? I am a huge fan of Jesus. Anybody love Jesus? All right. How many not only love Jesus, like the hanging on the cross Jesus, but you like the teacher Jesus? I ask those because there was a lot of people who like the hanging on the cross Jesus. When you get to the teachings of Jesus, not so much. Particularly, one of my favorite teachings of Jesus that the American church rejects, and in fact a lot of American culture rejects, is the parable of the talents. Where Jesus said, yeah, this guy who had 5, he did awesome. This guy over here had 1, he had none. Now in the American church, we'd like to take some from that guy who took his 5 and turned it into 10 and said, man, you got 10, you got enough to share. Let's take 2 or 3 of yours and bring it over here to this poor little old guy who's only got 1. That seems like the godly thing, the Christian thing to do, doesn't it? Not if you're Christ. Christ said, you wicked, lazy, miserable, useless servant, I'm going to take that 1 you got and give it to the guy with 10. Woo! Jesus is awesome, isn't he? I love me some Jesus. My favorite parts of Jesus are the parts we overlook the most. And so you're going to have to ask yourself, what in our church takes 5 talents and makes 10 out of it? What is it? Because eventually you're going to have to make a choice. This is the hard part of this process. You're going to have to choose. There's a room. If you're thinking right now, we don't have room for a pastor's meal. I've just laid out for you why a pastor's meal is so awesome. I'm wondering why my computer is not levitating right now. It's so awesome. I mean, I just laid out pastor's meal like this is incredible. It is going to produce something for you. Well, you got that room. If you don't have a room, all your rooms are filled with something, you got to ask yourself the question, which room is not producing anything, and what can we do to make that room productive? I can't tell you what that is. Actually, I probably could pretty quick, but I'm not going to tell you what that is. You'll have to decide that on your own. But you got to determine what is productive for us, and based on the parable of the talents, we want to put our energies and efforts in what is most productive. And the pastor's meal is amazing. Now, I told you this, that in a larger church, you might get away from the pastor's meal and use something that's slightly different. And it has some advantages, and it has some disadvantages. And frankly, Daystar is currently grappling with whether or not to add Pastor's Breakfast back. The more I teach on it, the more I want to go back and do it again. And lastly, here's the way we do it right now at Daystar. Foundations, we call it. Can also be called Growth Track. This is loosely modeled after the ARC model, the Association of Related Churches, which is a church planting organization based out of Birmingham. Does a lot of great stuff. Church of the Highlands is a part of that. But we have set up to have 4 Sunday night classes. We've made a slight change to this, but I only teach what we do once we've done it for a whole year, and we're sort of in a transitional thing. We're testing a new model, but this is very close to what we're actually doing right now. Daystar 101, 201, 301, and 401, you can call it whatever you want to call it. That's what we call ours. And it sort of takes the place of the pastor's meal in some aspects. Here's what it does do that it actually does better than the pastor's meal. It gives you more time to explain what the church is about and what we believe in and how to get involved. Gives you more time to teach those spiritual gift components and things like that. And we have this training available to you that you can, should you be at the place where you want to use that you could use that. What it does not do as well for you is get people back the very next Sunday. Okay, it's a little not as great as that because you don't run it in conjunction with your Sunday morning worship. So they could come back to one of the classes, even though those classes you don't have to run them 1, 2, 3, and 4. You could go 3, 4, 1, 2, or 3, 4, 2, 1. So you could come back the very next week, no matter what week of the month you came. You're not coming on Sunday morning, which is when you have the main worship service. So it lacks a little bit in that, but it gives you a lot more opportunity to teach the people. Okay. One of the other things is if you're running people through 4 classes, there is always an attrition rate. We start usually with about anywhere from 20 to maybe 30 in 101, and by the time they're done with the process, it may be down to 5 or 10, and so if you're a smaller church, you may start with 3 or 4 and finish with 0, so you may not be ready to do something like that, but that's sort of a picture of where you want to go in the future. I will say no matter what your size, my recommendation is that you start with the pastor's meal, and don't try to do too much at one time. Start with the pastor's meal in place. Now, I hope you've thought about some questions, because I do want to entertain questions. Before we do that, next month, let me tell you what we'll be talking about. I alluded to it earlier. We're talking about making the church like heaven on earth. This is the law of...
All right, we want to stop there so we can get some discussion in. Are we live streaming? No? Okay, we're live streaming, so I have to sit way up here. So either you can come forward or stay there, and we'll just make it work. How's that? Short people. What is happening? I want to lead the discussion here in a few minutes, and then Josh Nagy will come up and remind us a little bit about our core values and our vision statement that we're working on, so we can get that nailed down, or some more ideas so we can start compiling all that information together. And then after that, we're just going to have a prayer and we'll be done. So our goal is to have you out here in about another 15, 20 minutes. We don't want to go too late tonight. So anyway, I hope you're feeling all right after a 24-hour fast. I don't know if you gave up anything, if you gave up any caffeine, you gave up any food. Man, I hadn't fasted since the first of the year, and I'm telling you, I was hurting today. I was hurting, I really was. But anyway, but got to break it at Kelly's. I expected to see y'all there. Y'all always there on Wednesday. Expected to see y'all at Kelly's, but anyway, so I got vegetables, so hopefully my tummy will make it through the discussion here. So, but anyway, whatever it was, I hope that it was good for you. I hope it challenged you in your walk, whether it was giving up electronics or whatever it might be, anything like that. But anyway, well, let's just jump into it. I've got a bunch of stuff here, but tell me your thoughts on the pastor's meal. You know, we've done something like that, lunch with the pastor, do it once a quarter, but I have found out this, when no one, no one signs up for it, like I said, it could be 6 months. If nobody signs up for it again, it could be 9 months. So we do it once a quarter, but he made a great point, you know, and that's one of the things that I love about this. It's just a kind of a reminder of all the things that I used to know, you know, probably things that you know as well, but we're being reminded of these things again and to break out of our comfort zone and do some new things for the kingdom of God. So it's really good. So let's just start off here with your thoughts. Give me your thoughts. Tell me about the pastor's meal. What do you think about it? What stuck out in your mind? Either a statistic or an idea or a thought. Go ahead. Tell me. Don't be afraid. Speak up.
Breakfast is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes breakfast.
I agree. Yeah.
I think there was a commitment to cadence, meaning they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And they make a commitment to it, and they put resources behind it. It's just not something on the shelf you use occasionally. You make a
Right.
commitment and drive it home.
Well, we cut him off right there at the end, but the next this one and the next couple of months, this is when the rubber meets the road. This is what's going to make our church grow. This was the pastor's meal. That's the thing that they think is the most important through their research. Now remember, Rosemary and Josh and I were trying to figure it out yesterday. They've been teaching this for 4 years. They either did it 2 to 4 years before they started teaching it. So they're probably 8 years into this process. We're just into our 4th month, our 4th monthly meeting. But pastor's meal is the thing. Next month, like I said, is first impressions. It's all about the front door and the initial contact, ushers, greeters, parking lot attendants, all that sort of stuff. The next one is the prayer, care, and follow-up, where they're going to teach us how to follow up on everybody and people that we see and haven't seen for a while. Then it gets the next one is worship, what kind of worship we need to be having on Sunday mornings. And then the next one is the shock and awe, and then it gets into the outreach. And then after that it'll be children and youth. So anyway, so what we've got over the next 5 or 6 months is their order of growing the church. The things that are, in their idea, the most important things that are going to grow your church, and then the things that build on each other. So anyway, go ahead. So yes, I do agree with you. I agree with Ronnie. It's like what Ronnie said. What stuck out in my mind was the yeah buts. I mean, I hear that all the time. Yeah, but, yeah, I'm going to be here. Yeah, but I got this going. All right. I mean, I hear it all the time. You know, it's just one of those things that, you know, frustrating, but what can you do? But yeah, I agree. If we make a commitment to it, we got to make a commitment to it. Any other thoughts?
Is this something that can be done on a as-needed basis at first until we get?
I think instead
All
of,
ideas.
Instead of having one, 4 Sundays a month or whatever, somebody comes up, you take the bull and say, hey,
I think it would be based on
breakfast next month or next week, and then we get a pastor's breakfast.
I think it would be based on the visitors, and I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
for me, obviously, the statistics speak for themselves.
Sure.
So we have to not only invite people to this church, but we have to have a commitment to the first at least 3 to 4 months to keep them here. Yeah, nurture is a good word, but I mean, to that piece, I mean, if you invite someone to church, we can do this ourselves, not even pastor breakfast, but taking them to lunch afterwards, and
Sure.
I mean, that's a critical piece. I mean, those statistics, 3 weeks in a row, 80%. I mean,
Right.
you can't beat that. So
Well,
if it takes a weekly pastor breakfast, and I think that's what we have to get to. To his point, if we have a visitor one given Sunday, then we need to work towards having a pastor's breakfast
Yeah.
and advertising it.
Right.
And hopefully we don't have as many Sundays over the next 2 years without visitors. But
Sure.
if you don't have any visitors in the church, then
Right.
maybe you could just kind of do it on the fly for a couple of months until I see a need for a weekly.
Sure. You gotta remember when they did this weekly, he's talking about, they started it, I think when there were 700 people. But I do agree, and I do love that idea of we can be prepared and ready to go, and then each visitor that we had. Now, something that we kind of missed out on in that video, well, he might have said it, but we tried to skip some of that stuff in the middle that we just weren't quite ready for. But he did talk about there could be some people in your church who've never had an opportunity to really spend some time with me to get to know me and ask me some questions, and stuff like that. So if we had a visitor, we can always have it ready to go. We have a visitor, we invite them, we know they're coming, we can open it up to 6 or 8 more people who've never been there, so we make it worth our while, but we're always ready to go. but something that Rosemary and Josh and I were talking about yesterday, and now you gotta understand what he's talking about. He's talking about being aggressive with visitors. Did you catch that? And so many times, one thing that I've noticed with us is like he said,
Yes.
you're constantly nice, saying, oh yeah, that's great, yeah, so you're visiting around, that's awesome. But he said, no, we want you here, come back next week. And he's getting aggressive. And the thing that we were kind of cutting up yesterday is whenever Cindy and I are off here at church and we go on vacation or work, we usually go and visit a church. Now I'm going to be honest with you for a minute. I'm going to be brutally honest. Cindy is a consumer. I'm not. When I walk into a church and people walk up and they're aggressive with me, I'm just like, how quickly can I get out of there? Cindy loves it. They're like, hey, come over here, sign up for this, and here's your free little thing, and come over here, and you're going to be here. And I'm sitting there going, man, just let me alone, get me out of here. I want to get out of here. Yeah, so I don't know if it's a man thing or if it's a female thing. I'm just telling you, though, but this is the deal. What I like about the aggressive factor of it is we're not being aggressive about selling them a pool. We're not being aggressive about getting lawn service. We're getting aggressive about them coming to know Jesus Christ and the eternal things, but we treat them just like it's the same. Like, okay, that's fine if you want to go to Publix. Yeah, go to Publix. If you want to go to Kroger, go to Kroger. He's saying something that I don't know if y'all believe it or not. I believe it about our church. I believe in our church we have an awesome church family with some pretty awesome people, a great worship service, people that I could go up to, pray, and they pray for me, pray for them. I see many of you breaking all kind of addictions, all kind of things changing, trying to raise. What better place to raise your family than a church like we've got? Sure, it may not be the biggest, but I'm sitting there thinking, Cindy and I have thought about this many occasions, how much we love our church.
Amen.
You know, but this is the thing about it. We can say that we love it all we want to, but are we going to say, you know what, won't you come, I know you're visiting churches, but give us another shot next Sunday.
Don't you think that's just a back door?
Yeah.
You know, just so that, okay, well, we can't be too aggressive with these people, they're gonna visit other churches. Well, when they're walking in the door there, just like selling an automobile, most people that go, first thing they tell the guys, look, we're just shopping, we're gonna go to many other places.
Right.
But chances are, they're gonna leave there.
It's the same thing when I walk in to go buy a car. I'm going to say that so they leave me alone and take the pressure off where Cindy's ready to buy it. And I'm going, listen, that's just the first. Now, I may buy it the first time, but I'm telling them because I want it out. I'm just telling you the way I think versus the way it's not all guys are like that. Not all ladies are like that. I know that. I'm just telling you the difference. A lot of people today are consumers. A lot of people are different than that. However, though, we've got to figure out the place that we're passionate enough that we believe that they should come here. Like I've got some friends and stuff like that, people that have visited and stuff like that, and then some friends of Cindy's and stuff like that, that whenever I see them, I've got to where I just tell them, I need you to come to our church. I know you don't really have a church home. Won't you come to our church, help us build our church? Mm-hmm. You know, and listen, one couple came back Sunday that they hadn't come back since Easter, and I was grateful that they were finally back. You know, but I just called them up and said, listen, you're a young couple, we need you at our church. And they came Sunday. Now, what will happen on Sunday after that? I don't know, but go ahead, Ron.
Mark, about a month ago, was at Journey's Inn and on Sunday, and they have a back room, and it was empty, so you think I'll go sit down there or I'll eat there, wherever. And started to go back, and they had pastor's dinner or supper, lunch, whatever, and they had reserved the room there every third Sunday. And they wouldn't pay for the lunch, and they put 20, 30 people in there and had the program shut the door and did the deal. I said, you do that often? Every third Sunday. They had the cadence behind it, and they put the financial commitment. They didn't have the space, but
Sure.
they did it. I don't think we can do this without making that level of commitment. It can't be maybe. It can't be, you know, bring a dessert. You know, we got to put it on the table and create that that sales energy that sometimes we don't do.
Sure.
We sort of just sidestep it a little. It's going to take an investment.
I agree. I think it's the financial piece behind it. We have to put it behind it. Josh, you mind to turn the air up a little bit? It's kind of hot.
Well, Josh and I was having a discussion back there before too, and I think that for the most part, people in the church and Christianity, when you start looking at it from a business model perspective, it kind of, they throw up walls and they get scared of it. But that's ultimately, and they talked about it, what this program is about, is we're selling a product to these people. And I mean, ultimately, the product we're selling is their salvation. But, you know, we have to be aggressive, like almost at times, like the car salesman when you walk in the door. I mean, this is, you know, this is all the same things that you learn in business school on how to sell and marketing, and that's what we're doing as a church is we're selling ourselves to them. And I
Obviously
again,
graciously, but
yeah,
still,
absolutely.
yeah.
But I think that scares people in the church. You know, because you know they have this idea of what the church is, but with this type of initiative, you know, you have to implement business tactics and you know, I mean, the organizational piece of it. I mean, the church is you know is a business in itself. I mean, yes, it's a nonprofit, but we've got to be willing to do that and make those commitments to it.
Sure, right, yeah, I understand all that, yeah.
Well,
Any other
yeah.
thoughts?
Go ahead, John.
Okay, so what Ronnie's bringing up is very important. If we're gonna do something, it can't be we're gonna do it maybe next month or 3 weeks from now. Like he was saying, it's the regularity of it, every week. And the second thing that he said was it involved, he went ahead and invited the church. He didn't just say this is just for new people. This is something that if it's a regular thing, it's gonna be a draw. When you go to McDonald's, you know they're gonna be open the next morning. Or they're gonna be, if it's a 24-hour drive-through kind of thing, you're gonna visit them when you know they're open. If we present something that's an attraction, it needs to be every Sunday.
But Pastor, what
How-
would that look like though? Because if, let's say, we're here on Sunday, there are no visitors. So you wouldn't say it then.
Well, I mean, but I think you could also,
There's a
like what he's
twofold
talking
approach.
about, with opening it up to the people in the church, if you set it up to where, now obviously this Sunday is probably not a good Sunday to start it with a little bit of preparation, but, you know, if you say you set it for the Sunday after next, you know, you could open it up to people within the church, you know, name, like he said, last name starts with A to D. So then you're gonna get 8 to 10 people at that breakfast anyway, and then you get 1 or 2 guests that maybe come back for that breakfast, and you get to intermingle and introduce them. And so you have, you've got it set up to where the first, you know, 4 to 5 weeks of Pastor Breakfast is already going to be staffed with people from the church that give them the opportunity to have that you know, small atmosphere, but then you integrate the guests with it, and hopefully by the time you get through that, then you've got enough momentum that you have enough guests
Sure.
coming, so.
And a lot of people, whenever they have that small group like that, they'll bring somebody there to meet the pastor or whatever, you know. But he makes a really key point though, and I'm just gonna say it right now, I can't do it by myself. I can't start the week after next, you know, and that's not being a yeah but, it's just, how am I gonna cook the food, come in, get ready for a sermon, all that sort of stuff. You know, I've got, what he says is you've got to have the 5 or 6 best people in your church that are already serving, that are passionate about this, that feel called to do this. I don't know if that's First Impressions team, I don't know if that's outreach team, whatever it is, but this is the thing about it that I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it very boldly. Y'all can't keep relying on me to do everything.
Amen.
I don't think we
You see what
do.
I'm saying? And so it's easy to say, let's commit to it, but I'm not committing to it till I know I've got half dozen people that are gonna make it happen. Because where I come in and share, I can't come in and stay for an hour. I gotta come in, stay in there 10, 15 minutes and go get ready for church.
But if
You
you do it
see what I'm
like
saying?
Ronnie said, go to a restaurant after church. then,
That's not what
Pastor.
they're saying inside of this, though. They're saying specifically you need to be bringing them back to the church.
Right.
It goes up by getting them to the church, not outside of the church.
Well, I mean, you could still tell them to come to church next week and do a luncheon afterwards.
You can do
Sure, yeah.
that, but
You
it's
can do
not.
breakfast, you could do luncheon, but doing
What are we calling
it
breakfast?
once a month.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
breakfast
gonna miss
can be
any day.
easy. Someone can pre-make some biscuits, and
Sure.
you could bring an electric griddle in and set it up in a
Sure.
room, throw
Are you
some
glad to
pancakes
do it?
on the griddle and eggs.
Sure.
And
Well,
Oh, you've got
Let's
some
get
Just let me know when I need to bake cookies.
All right?
I mean, I'll come flip
Step
pancakes
back a
if I
little
need
bit.
to, so. But no, and it needs to be a team or a
Sure,
group in the churches that are
exactly.
manning it. You need to stop by for 15 minutes, like you
Right.
said, say your piece and
Sure, yeah.
move
yeah.
on.
So.
Let's just make sure that we
This-
know where we're coming from. Go ahead, Marie.
So are you having this breakfast before church starts?
Yes.
So how do you know they're visitors? Yeah,
Well, they'll
They would
come,
be
they'll come on
invited to the
Sunday, and then we
following.
invite them the next Sunday to the
the
breakfast.
next Sunday.
And what he was talking about,
To
like
get
the
'em here
ticket,
again.
is actually
Okay.
giving them like a venue ticket, you know,
Okay.
admit one, you know, it's just another, it's a marketing tool is
Sure,
all it
exactly,
is.
yeah.
But actually mailing them tickets for them to come back for a free breakfast then.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But
And then once you get it rolling, you get it rolling, you know what I'm saying? And, so,
I
yeah.
think even in the beginning, we could do biscuits, and, I mean, like we do at our meetings. You know, as long as there's food there, I think the food that they need to be getting is what's gonna be said.
Sure.
You know, as
I
long as
do
we
think,
got
Rob,
coffee, OJ,
it's the food and
biscuits,
the
maybe some
fellowship that
fruit,
draws them there.
some cookies.
But I think if you
You
listen.
know, we could have it here, we wouldn't have to go to a restaurant.
Sure.
Once it gets rolling, we could blow this thing apart.
Well, I think you're right. I do think I heard a model that had history, had visual presentation, and structure. And if you go into it willy-nilly, and sometimes you invite people in and you have a conversation, I think you gotta have a almost rehearsed plan that
Exactly.
provides a solid rock, so when they
Right.
walk out, they're going, Dad, burn these
Yeah.
people, so you know what
this
they're
will
doing.
take at least a month for us to
Yeah.
put together, minimum. It needs to be one of the two tasks of a given team. And then from there, the other thought from a couple of pieces back would be, instead of focusing on just a new member orientation type of setup, we can use the 4 or 5 meeting structure. And if we have new guests, we cycle back immediately to the first meeting whenever there's guests. That allows us to use it for the existing members. That would go through the entire flow, and if we have guests, I don't think anybody here is going to say anything about circling back and starting at point 1, if you will,
Sure.
to keep it in a flow for the guests at that point.
It just needs to be planned, put together, know who's working it, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Make sure it's organized and the content's ready to go. And really one of the biggest pieces that we were talking about before, that we'll turn this over to Josh just here in a moment, is, you know, we have to be able to have our vision to tell them that we've all agreed upon, that we are able to go there and to simplify and lay out, this is who our church is, and that we're united behind that. You know, because I think that's one of the biggest deals, though, is whenever nobody's using the same verbiage and the same language to try to reach out to people. So, like I said, the mission, the vision, and then the core values and stuff still has to be decided before this can take place. You know, but it's all great ideas. Any more thoughts on it?
So do we have a space that we could do that?
Yeah, we were thinking about it yesterday. We have we don't use that
It's
classroom
the room
outside of my office anymore, now that the children use the big room over there. So they
Well,
use,
that's like the back room.
so they use these 4 rooms, and use the big youth room on Sunday morning, so we do have that back room back there. The only difficulty is we've ran into this before, is that room needs to be clean. We need to get us a storage building, get that stuff out, make that room nice, you know, for people, because right now it's just kind of a junk room that we, you know, so it needs to be something very, very nice where we can have meetings in, you know what I mean? So yeah, we do have a place, yes, we do have a place.
Happy to help get it
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
So
Rockin'.
I guess-
Well, and like I said, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, an electric griddle.
I've got 2.
I mean, you throw that on a table and cook some, flip some pancakes, and so.
Yeah, if we can get the people that say they wanna do it, I don't mind getting some kind of group chat conversation going, and we can kind of work out some details. But I mean, if it's like, I need to cook breakfast for it, I don't mind bringing in biscuits or whatever. Or if we've got a budget that we can buy stuff, I don't mind stopping on the way in and getting that. And then another idea that I had from the video was, we do need some kind of promo video, some kind of little promotional
Now keep
video
thinking
that
about
kind of
Scott.
it's cool or whatever. Something like that, and that could be played during that,
Mhm.
to kind of go ahead and get all the nitty gritty details out of the way. Here's our values, here's everything that you could potentially have an issue with, which is kind of laid out. And then that way when you come in, that's when they have an opportunity, I guess, to talk about those things with you. Or no, I guess you just kind of more or less introduce yourself and, I don't know.
Well, they take their they do their gift survey.
Yeah.
He laid
See,
out.
he
what the
laid out like 10
he laid it out
things. I'm
exactly
sitting there
what
going-
it should look like.
I
It's
definitely
just
vote
we
for
need
the
to
pastor's
decide
wife
how
Oh, yeah,
we
it
do
is.
What'd you say?
The pastor's wife doing follow
That's what
up.
I was.
Hey, you're right, Michelle, but one thing
I
I
feel
will,
like we're making it very, very difficult. I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah, well, this is the thing about
we
it.
all agree it needs to happen, but how's it gonna look? Because right now, we don't have a ton of visitors at this point, but we know that it needs to happen so that when the first visitor comes, we can say, hey, come back next week, this is what we have.
Yeah,
Well, I
if we
think it's
start
real
going through the
simple.
process with people who never did get an opportunity.
Yeah.
We can kind of work all the bugs out, and we're at least going through the process with our own people. And then by the time the first
we have
visitor-
probably half the congregation that hasn't ever been to a dessert with pastor with me, you know, and have gone ahead and joined and not been a part
Well,
of it.
and again, if you set the expectation that you're gonna have it every week, but then by Thursday or Friday, you don't have anybody committed to coming, then you just call it off and,
Right.
you know, don't do your grocery shop until Saturday.
Yeah, but I do think what Michelle said is important because he lays out like 8 or 10 things, I believe, that happens there. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know about you, but that's a little bit overwhelming.
It's a lot.
Mark, right behind you.
That's the flow.
And he said an hour and a half, you don't have that.
Yeah, so that we'd have to simplify that process a lot, and then as we make our way through it, then we'd figure out the structures and stuff like that. Let me run through this real quick, and let me see if we've got it all in. I do agree, it takes core values to make sure we've got the vision statement for that. We start with our church, and then we start inviting visitors. You know, it can be done, teamed up together, and all that sort of stuff. I do love, anybody remember what the FTA is?
First time attended.
First time attender, we don't call them what?
Visitors.
You can use the term guest, but it'd rather be an FTA. What are the percentages that come one Sunday?
10,
2 Sundays?
50.
3?
80.
4? I just said that.
They're hours.
Well, this is what I've got. I've got here, everybody loves the idea, great to do. I will talk with our eldership and the finance team about the commitment to put the finances behind it. So far, I've got Scott, Jeannie, Gail interested in helping to make it happen. You know, so we definitely need, you know, I think we really need probably 3 more at least, you know, and then we can start working on the content. Any more questions or thoughts on that before I turn it over to Josh to talk a moment about core values?
So when we need this delivered by,
What's that?
the regular structure.
Well, we got to answer the core values first, so that, you know, whenever we get that going, make sure we've got the information to tell them, you know, and then go through the financial aspect of it. Like I said, I don't want to start it half-heartedly, and then next thing you know, it's me running and going and spending $30 every week on biscuits, you know what I mean? We got to figure it out before we just do it, you know,
I would say
so.
it's at least a minimum of a month process. Minimum of a month.
Josh, you want to come on up here and do this, and then,
You want me or you want? Nate?
Josh, Nate,
Oh, my goodness.
Go ahead. Look towards me.
I got those right.
Oh.
Okay.
I won't be long. I'll try not to be long, just real quick. We have just, the last couple months, we've been talking about core values. We're obviously trying to finalize the vision statement from a couple of months ago. I think everybody understands our mission here, and, you know, in meetings and discussions with the leadership and others, we feel like our mission is strong. You know, reaching one more for Jesus. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we just need to execute that because, you know, I think that we have to make the full commitment. I think that's what hopefully 24 to Double is going to do for us. Ultimately, vision, and, you know, we can run through a few. There's a lot of core values. And the reason we're discussing this now is we're planning on compiling all of the information, something that we're going to have a discussion on Sunday when we meet with our individual groups, but to try and finalize over the next couple of weeks what that vision is. So that said, if any of you have any other input or, you know, pray over this and bring us some more information Sunday morning if you have it. You know, ultimately, what's that?
there's still some sheets in the back that want.
Okay, there you go. We did get a lot of good feedback the last month's meeting, I think even better than the month prior. You know, some of that data we haven't put together yet. But at the end of the day, you know, our mission is not gonna change until the point that we all decide as a church it needs to be changed. Now, what we're looking at in a vision is, you know, more of a defined role for what the vision of this church is, let's say in 24 to double for the next 2 years. What are our goals? You know, yes, they shared Daystar Church 3 words, something I've talked to Mark about. You know, we don't have to follow that model exactly, but we need to keep this short and sweet. You know, unfortunately, Mark and I were having a discussion this week that he said something in, I think it was in church last Sunday or the Sunday before, and he was talking about 24 to double, and he had a little one-liner, and I wish I would have written it down because it could have been our vision statement right there. But, you know, if you have a short statement that you think, you know, really explains the values and the vision of this church, bring it to us. You know, we obviously, everybody has, many of you have written down some of your one-word things. We're not certain right now if we may, you know, land on 3 separate words like Daystar does, but we do need to keep this short and sweet. It's something that we can advertise. You know, as I said earlier, a lot of this, when you look at a program like this, there's a lot of business models to it, visions, missions. You know, at the end of the day, this is all going to hopefully pull together over the next 24 months and take us where we need to go. So, I mean, just to open the floor up, is there anything that anyone has thought about maybe since our last meeting, or any great ideas of the vision of this church?
And I drove by Synovus Bank across from Ingles. If you drive by their sign, there's 3 words on their bank. It talks about investment, engagement, and with 3 simple words that told me what their role, their behavior, how they operationalize their work. And it was so simple, it dawned on me that, you know, we probably could have 10, but getting it down to those 3 or 4, whatever it is going to be key.
Well, and I think you look at, you know, corporate America and mission and vision statements, sometimes they can be 2 paragraphs long. I mean, they overkill them, they keep it simple. This is also going to be about the branding of our church. You know, because the objective with this vision statement, you know, we in my opinion, we have a really good logo. It's really nice, but that's something that, you know, we're going to start with our shirts, putting, you know, whatever we decide that vision may be, most likely we're going to have the logo and have those 3 words or that vision below it. So,
I like
this is
Donovan's
something we
idea
need
about
for
the
this
tattoos.
too.
What's that?
Before we can get this back, and we need to have.
oh yeah, we need to finalize all this stuff and move forward. And I mean, I think everybody knows at this point, but this Sunday is the start of the small group meeting. So we assigned our team last month, 9:30. This Sunday morning, we'll be breaking off in the teams and, you know, starting to get down to some of the nitty-gritty things of what these teams are going to do. But you know, get back to your point, we need to solidify what this vision is. You know, over the, I would say definitely we'll have this finalized by next month's meeting, but over the next couple of weeks. So, any other input that anyone may have?
I have one thing, I can't remember what I wrote down last month or the month before, but at the little meeting we had yesterday, the word non-judgmental came to me, because we have, this day and age, a lot of people that they all don't look like us anymore. Maybe they're tattooed up and this and that, and I think non-judgmental is it. I don't know how you'd use it, but,
About come as you are.
yeah, that's nice,
Accepting is kind
you
of
know,
opposite of accepting.
yeah.
There's a sign at a church that says no perfect people
Mhm.
allowed.
The orchard.
Orchard.
And that's like the one that I always remember.
I've actually seen T-shirts now with that very same thing.
Yeah.
And that's where we're looking to go with this. I mean, we're looking to get T-shirts printed, really brand our logo and the vision for the church. Now, again, we get done with 24 to double. We may all come together for a discussion and look for a new vision for the next couple of years. I mean, this is not something that, you know, I mean, Reach One More for Jesus has been the vision of this, or the mission of this church, sorry, for a long time. And, you know, we've discussed this and feel like it needs to continue to be the mission of this church. But what are we trying to accomplish, and who are we is what we're looking for in this vision statement. So any input you have, publicly or privately, if you want to come see one of us, you know, after the meeting on Sunday morning, if you want to grab a sheet, you know, again, some people, you can put your name on it if you want it to be 100% confidential, but we really value your input on it.
Just to clarify, vision is who we are, mission is our goal and purpose.
Good.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, please be sure to fill that out, more thoughts, you know, so we can get that nailed down so that we can put together the content for the pastor's breakfast. You know, one thing that he said that really stuck in my mind is he said, you know, a lot of people are looking for less to do. He said, but until you get, you know, your problems fixed in your church, everybody's got to do more. You know, not do less, but do more to be able to get things to where they need to be. And that, to me, that's the greatest challenge that we have. And I'll say this over and over, the word that keeps coming to my mind, we don't have to use it, I'm just telling you, is passion. I wish people were as passionate about the church and the kingdom as I am. Because when you're passionate, you follow through. And right now, we just don't have follow through. We've got to get follow through done. Everybody's got great ideas and great thoughts, but making it happen, we always think, well, somebody else will make it happen. Well, maybe let's get that instead of going, I can make it happen. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's incredibly key. I want us to close in prayer. We know that this is going to happen. This is one of the very first thing that they say is the core that's got to get done. It will roll out after we get our vision statement together so that we have the content to build around, to tell people about it. And we just got to get it going as far as that goes. So whether that takes 2 weeks or a month and a half, whatever, it's got to be pretty quick because this is next month. The entire teaching is about first impressions, and then the next month it's about the prayer, care, and follow-up. Next month's about worship. I mean, it just continues to hammer us over the next 6 months. You know, meeting on Wednesday nights and following up on Sunday morning. That's where it's going to be at. It's going to be the make or break whether people are committed to it or not. And so anyway, it's really a challenge. So this Sunday morning, 9:30, 5 teams will meet. Every team will meet except for the worship and shock and awe because they've got stuff going on at church from 9:30 to 10:30. And just a reminder for everybody, next Wednesday night, everything is back here at the church. Studies for children, teens, adults. We're studying a discipleship study through the book of Revelation. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a great, different, unique way to look at the book of Revelation. So I'm excited for that. But can I get a couple people to pray for 3 things? Who would pray for the yeah buts that we bind Satan from the yeah buts? Anybody do that for me? I know it sounds kind of funny to say, doesn't it? All right, Jonathan, we got that. How about this? Memory said this. We like the hanging on the cross Jesus, but we don't like the teaching Jesus. I need somebody to pray for that we will use our talents. That we'll pray that God will let us use our talents and do something. Who would pray for that part? Anybody? All right, thank you. And the last one would just be that we make this commitment to decide to continue what we're doing to grow the kingdom of God. Like I said, starting from this month, for the next 19 months or whatever it is. I think it's a total of 25 months. This is our 4th month, so I guess it would be 21 more months to go. So, but it's really going to get crazy the next 6 months. So, who would pray that we decided to do this and that God's blessings would be all over it? Who would do that? All right, thank you. Well, let's pray. Jonathan, you'll start, and then Josh, and then Rob. Let's pray together.
Father, we just thank you. We come together as a church that you are our great lover. You're the one that loves us so much you gave your life for us. We want to acknowledge that we are incapable on our own. We are weak and we need your help, Lord. We need your wisdom, we need your strength, we need your Holy Spirit to do these things. And Father, I pray that you would strengthen each one of us here, and those who are not here, you would give them strength too, Lord, to have this vision of unity and blessing that's going to come as we proclaim your holy name to those who are so in need of hearing it. Please lead us according to your word, Lord, in the path of righteousness for your name's sake, and that you would give us understanding beyond our years and show us the way. We bind you, Satan, in Jesus' name as a church. We come against you. You come against us, but we come against you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And all of these what ifs and buts and I can't, we bind those things from being said, and we proclaim that we will speak words of life. We will speak what your word is, Lord. And you put that within us, cause it to be stirred up. Let the gifts be stirred up in Jesus' mighty name, that we would proclaim who Jesus Christ really is in our lives. And we thank you for these precious times and precious moments. And for each precious person, we thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for all that you do for us, Lord, for your love, your grace. We just ask that you pull us all together as a group, Lord, that you solidify us through this program as a body of believers, Lord, to go out and reach one more for Jesus, Father. We ask that you rid us of the excuses, Lord, and the hang-ups and the things that come between us, doing what we need to do for the kingdom of God, Lord. We know that Satan will test us. Satan's going to put things in front of us through this process, Father, and I just ask that you break those walls down, and you just guide us forward as a group of believers with a clear mission and vision to reach one more for your kingdom, Lord.
Well, the key word here is commitment. If we're going to do this, we have to commit to it. Father, so many people get in a box and they just don't want to get out of that box, Lord. This is flipping the box upside down. We need to be able to scramble out from under it and do what we need to do. Lord, you give us your all. Now it's time for us to give you our all. There's so many people out there that don't know you, Father. Our commission, the Great Commission, was to go out and seek and find those people. Lord, we just pray that each and every person in this room will have the level of commitment that it takes to turn this into something fantastic. Lord, that we may build that new church right across the parking lot there, Lord, that we're busting at the seams and trying to buy people out around us because we don't have enough room. Father, that's the vision, and that's the thing that I see that I've always wanted to see here, Lord. We've made a commitment to do your will, no matter what it is, whatever you lead us to do, Lord, not our own agenda. Father, I just ask that you continue us on that path, continue loving us like you do, and Lord, give us the strength and the wisdom to do what it takes to pull this off and start LifeBridge Church on a new path. We love you, Father. You're awesome. Take care of us each and every day. It's our time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much for coming. Look forward to seeing you Sunday morning.